honor to be here at GAS. It's really special to be able to get to share this with all you guys. So thank you so much for coming out and getting up early to be here. So thank you. It's nice to see all your faces. And if you have any questions, this is pretty informal. Just like shout or mad at me, and I'll try and answer them and interact with you guys as much as possible. So yeah, just feel free to just hang out. Thinking about this demo was a little bit of a challenge for me because over all the years of doing demo, this is probably the least amount of time I ever had. And I average about a month on all the pieces that I've been making, at least for the last year or two. So trying to do something in an hour and a half is actually extremely challenging for me to figure out. So I want to just kind of show you some basic techniques about how I sculpt chunks onto a hollow form. We kind of can get the gist. It's really the basis of what I like to call progressive sculpting, where I'm basically shaping pieces onto one another throughout the project. We've got some blue dichro over some Roswell green right now, and I use almost dichro in almost everything I make because I like sparkling things. So I can't get enough of it. Some really great company is Golden Gate Glassworks out of Eugene. Makes a lot of really amazing dichro tubing on the lathe and stuff, and I have them make some custom stuff for me.
Can you talk about your flame characteristic when you're working dichro?
Yeah, you know, with dichro it's super sensitive. And so it's really just about using a really light, you know, a really cool flame. Because you don't want to work it that much. And also, like, another piece of advice is a lot of people try and overwork it or sculpt it or like puff it out into too big of a hollow form. And so the more that you work dichro, the less vibrant it's going to be. And the more likely you are to kind of burn out the metals in it. So I like to try when I'm working with it, keep it as true to shape as possible. And if anything, just like pull it down instead of puffing it out and losing some of that vibrancy. So
he's calling again.
and I normally work on the Herbert Arnold, so this is a little different of a torch for me, so bear with me.
He is calling again.
So here I'm just making sort of a basic hollow vessel form. Something that's just going to be like my skeleton to sort of wrap my solid chunks around. thick chunks, so it takes a little bit for the heat to penetrate.
Sketch out your work ahead of time, or do you just kind of go with
What's that?
Do you sketch out your work ahead of time?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, my sketches are like chicken scratch. I'm really bad at two-dimensional stuff. But yeah, whenever I get an idea for a piece or like a vision, I usually just try and get that down on paper sort of as soon as possible. And it's like kind of like this outline of what I want to do. And then a lot of my work after that is more of a freestyle. And so it's always way more elaborate than my, very basic sketch. But it's because I just keep kind of building on to the general idea. It's like that progressive sculpting. It's like kind of filling in space, a negative space. And sort of letting the piece speak to me. Is there some way I could get another sleeve that's not humongous?
When you're doing a deep heat, do you depend more on color or feel to know you're there?
It's more feel. You can kind of feel by how much it's moving, how thick it is. For me, I think color only gives away so much. You can really feel the subtleties in your hands and really where it's moving and
Not that I'm saying it this time.
Oh, I have one in my bag, actually.
that's convenient. You're awesome. Thank you. I'll get it in just a minute. Way to come prepared.
Yeah.
You're more prepared than I am.
Are you spinning that up slowly by section by section as you're pushing it and compressing it?
My what?
Your tubing, are you spinning that up slowly, or are you spinning it up and then compressing it all together?
I'm not really twisting it so much. I'm trying to kind of keep it, like I said, the less you try and work the diaper, the less it's going to burn out. So I'm just trying to give it just a little bit of shape. And there's a slight little spin in there, which kind of makes a nice pattern in the diaper lines here. Yeah, I feel like I'm driving a different car right now. It's really weird. You know how that weird feeling when you drive someone else's car and you're like, whoa.
And everybody's watching.
I know, and everybody's watching too.
And everything's in the wrong place.
One of my new favorite colors is called Nemo from North Star Glass. It's like this really cool aquamarine color. I used to be so jealous of hot glass and soft glass because they have all these like really amazing transparent colors. So I'm like, man, I wish we could get that color in boro. And I feel like in the last couple of years, really, the borosilicate color companies have really been innovative and putting out just so many great new colors. And I'm a huge fan of transparency because I like my glass to look like glass. I like it to be able to reflect the light. It's one of the things that I think is so beautiful about glass. And so all these new, shades of transparency has been really awesome. Not to mention all the color changing glass that's out now, which is really fun. That changes from daylight to fluorescent light. You get a lot of variations, and then the UV glass. It's really been adding a whole other level to my art and sort of the messaging that I'm communicating with my art. For example, right now I'm working on, back at home I'm working on a coral reef piece. And really just trying to depict sort of the beauty of the coral and the oceans and sort of the messaging behind the warming of the oceans and sort of what it's doing to the coral. So I'm working on, showing the contrast between all white coral versus super vibrant, beautiful coral that's alive and living. And that's been really fun because I've also been able to incorporate a lot of UV glass into it because, there's like a lot of UV stuff going on in the deep. So many beautiful colors. So it's really fun to kind of emulate that with some of the glass.
How did you prep that big chunk that you have?
So this chunk is basically, I just took like a piece of solid 20 mil and I striped 2 layers of the color on it.
Do you have a preference of clear that you like?
I usually use shot for my clear. I use a lot of 4 mil for bracing and stuff, and 6 mil for a little larger sculpture bracing. And that's pretty much most of what I use besides the 20 mil. So all of the glass that I sculpt with sort of starts like basic, like this. Like this is the foundation of almost all my work, is these solid chunks of different color layers. And I like to experiment layering different transparents over solids and striking colors and sparkly colors. I kind of get my own little color mixes by doing that. I'm getting hot, man. I'm glad I'm first thing in the morning. It's the coolest part of the day. I'm going to be dying up here if it was the middle of the day. It's still cold up in the northwest. So it's nice to be in some work. So I'm just adding my attachment points to my vessel. This is where I'm going to attach the feet.
have almost no tools on the table. Is that standard for you?
No tools?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, honestly, I don't do a lot of tooling in my work. I keep it pretty minimal. I like to, you know, have the torch be, you know, the thing that shapes it. I try not to push my glass so much with the tooling. I feel like I just personally get a little bit of a better of a flowiness. So I tend to keep it pretty minimal. Today I just brought my little paddle, my little reamer. This guy is one of my favorites. It's kind of like a butter knife, like a graphite sharp edge. It's really nice for tooling. And then my mini tweezers and my little dental tool for sculpting. They're pretty much the only tools I ever really use. I like my smasher a lot too. I make a lot of pedals and things and flat canes, so my smashers come in here quite a bit. And my favorite tool, out of any tool, is this little guy. And man, once this little guy came into my life a couple years after I started flame working, it like changed everything for me. And I would not be able to do the work that I do today without that guy. I mean, it's allowed me to do so much.
What brand do you have there?
This is a Smith. It's actually like a jeweler's torch. Used predominantly by jewelry makers, although I don't know anymore. They probably get a lot of business from the lampworkers, but yeah, it's really what I do my big sculptures with. So I will make like the big base of my sculptures in my big torch, and then when I go and add my leaves and my branches and stuff, I can set my big piece kind of on my bench and then just mini torch all my attachments on it. So it really allows me to work on big things that have a lot of parts, and then I can just assemble the parts onto the big piece without having to like sit there and, you know, muscle that thing in the kiln and the flame all day. So I'm a short person. I got a small wingspan, so it's really the only way that I can do large work. If you've followed my career in the last 15 years, I've always gone big. I've always really liked making big stuff, and making small things was actually a big challenge for me. I think I just enjoy the challenge of it all. It's kind of how I was brought up. I had a bunch of friends that I was surrounded by sort of in the beginning years that were making big, huge, like heady pieces, and so it's kind of all I ever knew. Okay, just back out my little attachment notes on there.
Yeah, that's fair size for the.
Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna sweat some more. I feel like I'm detoxing. don't know if anybody here is into yoga, but I'm a big fan of yoga, like a regular practice. I feel like it's helped me sort of physically be able to do all this kind of physical labor, because it's a lot, especially when you're making big stuff. It's really physically intense, and when you don't naturally have a big body or a lot of muscle mass, it's really good to keep it stretched out and keep yourself in shape, because I've injured myself quite often by not stretching or by working too hard and trying to do too much and lift too much. And I'm sort of learned to kind of listen to my body and, you know, work shorter hours if I need to, just to kind of keep myself from getting injured. And that's something that's kind of taken me a long time to learn. The hard way, of course. And so the older I get, the more I try and do those little things like stretching, have a stretching routine before I get on the torch, just because, you know, we need this precious body. We can't afford to get injuries and not work. So, it's very important. A little story, I was working on the winter tree over there in the body of work, and you know, I work by myself in my studio. I don't have any shop mates or anything. And so I kind of just don't ask for help a lot. I just think, oh, I got this, I can do this. And so I spent about a few days, you know, working on the piece after I had attached the main body, and I'm reaching into the kiln for a couple days straight, just like trying to lift this piece in and out of the kiln all day long. And then I woke up one morning and couldn't move my arm. I had kind of thrown my back out. I was in a lot of pain and had to take a few days off, and that's when I was like, okay, you got nothing to prove, you know, you're not that tough, ask for help. And so I had an old assistant of mine from Colorado who came out and helped me finish my last piece for the show. And all he did was literally open the kiln and lift this big piece out for me and then put it back in when I was done using my mini torch and welding my attachments on. And it was like night and day difference. You know, to not have to physically exert myself more than necessary. You just kind of got to learn to ask for help when you need it, and also figure out ways to innovate new techniques. It's like, you know, you just kind of, I figured out ways to use my bench, use the top of my table to really work on my stuff. You know, I had this idea for a long time that I had to have this handle on everything I was working on, and it all had to be hot at the same time. And then it wasn't until I did a collaboration with Buck that it kind of like opened my eyes to realize that, like, you know, the entire piece doesn't have to be hot when you're working on it. You can work on one section that's hanging half out of the kiln and half in the kiln, and you can work on that hot section and have the cold section just be your handle. You know, it doesn't all have to be on a handle. And when I figured that out, it was like, oh, okay. Like, that kind of changes the scale of what I can do. Because obviously I can only hold so much weight, especially on a handle. And so now I have little tricks that I've developed, like my brother made this lazy Susan kind of contraption. And so it's like, it's a piece of hardy backer that's basically on this like metal lazy Susan, so I can set my piece down and here I can spin it around. You know, and that way I can get different angles on my piece and be able to spin it around without trying to move it. And that's been super awesome. It's one of my favorite new things. And yeah, just things as simple as like putting several pairs of gloves on and just grabbing that thing out of the kiln and setting it on your bench and then doing the work and putting it back in. It's like you don't have to be all the time. And yeah, it's just fun to figure out ways that you can, you know, think outside of the box a little bit and work with what you got. And someone asked me a good question last night, and they wanted to know if I did all of my prep work on my own. And the answer for that is yes and no. I do a lot of my like solid prep work, like I was talking about before with my color layering. I do a lot of that stuff on my own, and that's like my own custom mixes. But as far as my tubing goes, I buy that off the market, or I have specially custom made tubing for me. I don't have a lathe, so you know, it's really nice to get really nice even material that's lathe pulled and professionally pulled. On the market nowadays, you can get in almost anything. I mean, you can get so much variety of things compared to what you can get in the past. That for me, I think it's more important that instead of really spending the limited amount of time that I do get in the studio on doing a bunch of prep, for me, it's like I prefer to spend my time on what I know that I excel at and what I know that I want to work on the most, and that's actually sculpting. So that's where I really put a lot of my focus is in my sculpting, and so I'm not ashamed to use prep that other people do. You know, I think it's a blessing, and it allows me to make more work, and it allows me to practice more on the things that I know that, you know, on the specific kind of techniques that I'm trying to master, you know, which isn't necessarily prep. And some people, that's what they do is prep, and they're really amazing at it, and that's great. But for me, that doesn't talk to me the way that building sculpture does. And so anytime I can make more efficient use of my time in the studio, you know, I take it in order to be able to really practice what, you know, the techniques that I'm really trying to master here. We are almost done with our leg attachments. Sure you guys are ready to see something else.
Can you talk a little bit about what it was like coming up as a female glass artist in the industry?
Yeah. You know, I think that there's a lot of disadvantages, but there's been a lot of advantages too. You know, I kind of was forced to kind of hold my own amongst the big boys, as you could say. And it honestly made me push myself harder and better, because I kind of felt like I had something to prove more than most people. You know, prove that I deserve sort of the recognition that I got in the industry. You know, I kind of always worked that I didn't want to just be, you know, a pretty face, and I didn't want people to think that I had, you know, gotten the successes that I did just based on the fact that I'm a woman, you know, which happened. But for me, it was really important to sort of make work that really people couldn't really say that it was just, you know, I got these awards or recognition or whatever just based on that fact. I wanted the work to be there in the pretty back. You know, your sex has nothing to do with your ability to blow glass. You know, and working in the pipe industry especially, you know, if you have to prove yourself to these guys, you have to, you know, carry yourself a certain way in order to be taken seriously with all these guys. And I feel like it's getting better now, and especially with a lot more women kind of coming onto the scene. It's a lot more open-mindedness, but back when I first started, man, it was like, they wouldn't give you the time of day. They're like, whose girlfriend are you? You know? And so it was like, for me, it was like, oh, okay, I'll show you, I'll show you what I can do. And so I think that a lot of that, feeling, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like feeling discriminated against, which happened quite a bit, that it's always like, oh, show you, and I'm the kind of person to where it's like, I'm gonna work hard to like show you that I deserve it, and so, yeah, it's different stories like that happened that really pushed me, that I don't think had I not gone through those experiences that I would be here, that I would have been as motivated to really feel like I need to prove it. And so it's nice to kind of be a little bit older and more mature and really like get to the point where it's like, okay, now I'm just having fun. Now I don't really care what anybody thinks. But that took a long time. I've been making pipes for 15 years, and so it's like I grew up in that culture.
Have you dealt with imposter syndrome?
Oh yeah.
How would you recommend processing these feelings?
That's a really deep question. And for me, I don't think it's something that really ever goes away. I think we all deal with it at some point or another, to some extreme or another. But for me, it's like, I kind of put it this way. It's like, it just got to the point where I decided in my head, like this switch flip, where I decided, you know what? And I'm not going to be afraid anymore. Because I realized that that's all it was my own fear that was keeping me from making the things that I wanted to make. I was too scared that, I wasn't, strong enough to make a big piece, or that I wasn't going to be good enough to do it, and, all those, negative thoughts in my head that I just kept having. I got to the point one day where it was just like, just don't be afraid, just go for it. And you have to just kind of convince yourself. It's like, this is just my fear talking, and once you let go of that and just try, like you surprise yourself with what you're able to accomplish. And like I tell people, it's like you're your biggest setback, like you're your biggest limitation. It's like all in your mind, how limited you are. No one else is limiting you, but your own thoughts and the way that you view your limitations with this material, because it's hard. Glass blowing is very, very difficult, and I think that's one of the things that I love about it. Is like, in order to get good at it, you really have to work hard. You really have to be diligent in order to get good at it. And so it kind of weeds out a lot of people who aren't really serious. If you want to get somewhere, then it's like you really have to get over that fear, because you're not going to get anywhere unless you step out of your comfort zone.
Do you use a lot of hollow handles working on solid? Or just notice
Not generally. Sometimes it's nicer to use hollow handles because they're actually stronger. A solid handle is a lot more likely to crack off, whereas a hollow handle, there's just more surface area. So it's actually stronger, and not to mention it's lighter too. So it's preferable to use, say, 12 mil handle, hollow handle versus solid. I used to use a lot of solid 12 mil, and then I realized I could use the hollow as handle, and I was like, oh, duh. I should have been doing this all along. Okay, so this is a little thing I like to do. When it comes to shaping out my feet, my bench top at home is a piece of hearted lacquer as well. So when I shape out my first foot, I just like to do an outline of the angle on my bench here. That way, when I go to shape my other feet, I can just hold it up right here and make sure that it hits the same angle with each one. Yes?
Did you just use the graphite to make a mark?
I did.
Wild!
Yeah, it's essentially a big pencil.
Materials on hand.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you get really creative in the studio when you need a pencil or something like that. You just take what you have on hand.
If you don't mind my asking, can you talk about the role of kind of the support people in your life, and I guess the role of like cheerleaders in the forms of friends and family, and how, you know, you talk so much about determination, and that's really incredible, and I'm just wondering, does that make sense?
Yeah, you know, obviously, well, my friends and family are great, you know, supporters of what I do, and they're awesome. But, you know, I feel like a lot of the success that I've had, I really can contribute to some of my peers. Like some of the glass blowers that I really grew up around and learned around that I really look up to is Darby Home. And then also Scott Deppy is someone that I lived near for a while and had a lot of influence by. And also I've worked with Buck, who is probably my favorite borosilicate artist and my biggest inspiration. And getting the opportunity to really work with those guys and become friends with them, I think is really like kind of what changed things for me. You know, I'm a pretty shy person in general. Let me make sure my angle's correct here. All right, I got that pretty good. But yeah, it was really like, you know, after coming onto the scene and kind of becoming friends with these guys and getting the opportunity to work with them, and then seeing me and they're being like, you know, I think you got something here. Like, I think you're pretty good. Like, we should collab. And it's like, when your hero tells you that, you're like, mind is blown, you know? And I didn't believe that about myself. I didn't really think that, you know, I had what it takes to hang with the big boys for a long time. And it wasn't until they started embracing me and accepting me as an equal that I really got the confidence in myself to be like, yeah, you know, I can do this. Like, they think I'm cool, right? So, you know, those guys especially for kind of taking me under their wing and being mentors and you know, my teachers in a sense, like, you know, and that's what's so great about the pipe movement, honestly. Like, it feels like a big family. You know, we're all kind of supporting each other and encouraging each other. I mean, there's lots of drama and ego and stuff too, but like, for the most part, it's like we're all excited about what we're doing. You know, we're all excited to share with each other and work with each other and have so much fun collaborating and, you know, sharing experiences together. That's such a blessing to be a part of. You know, and the really cool thing is that I grew up in Southern Oregon, is where I was born and raised. And so, of course, everybody and their mom blows glass out there. That's like crazy. It's like where pipes originated, you know, so there's a lot of glass blowers out there. And for me, growing up surrounded by it, my parents had a head shop. And so I just assumed that that's how it was all over the country. You know, I just thought like, oh, this is how it is, and this is a thing, and everybody does it everywhere. And it wasn't until, you know, I kind of got into the scene and I started traveling around the country that I was like, whoa, like, no one else is doing what we're doing. You know, and that was like probably like around 2010 area, like time. But it really, you know, it really hit me. Like, I was born in the right place in the right time in history to have been exposed as young as I was and to have been surrounded by the people I was. Like one of the people I mentioned earlier, Darby Home, he's like a family friend. He's been like an uncle to me. I mean, he's known me and my family, my mom, since I was a baby. He's like Uncle Darby, you know, and I never realized that, oh, he's like this amazing glass blower until like I was well into glass blowing and was like, oh, yeah, like I was surrounded by the best the whole time and I didn't even know. So, yeah, I feel really blessed at the exposure that I was able to get and the people that I was surrounded by, which really pushed me to be the best that I could. You know, I had a high standard to live up to. Water. Thanks for the awesome questions.
What would you tell someone starting out they need to do to get the foundation for technique?
Find someone to work with. I feel for the people who start by themselves in the garage and don't get out and try and work with other people, because it's like there's so much to learn, and if you watch someone else before you initially get on the torch, and it's been, I say at least spend a couple months if you can just watching, then you can really, really learn a lot, or taking some classes. But really just like having a mentor or a teacher or someone that's willing to work with you, because you could spend years, trying to get to a point with your tricks and your techniques, working on something, when someone can show you the same amount of information in like a week, And so that's, a lot of people ask me where I learned, and it's like, I never took classes, I never had a teacher, but I went around and worked with everybody I could. And so I learned from my peers, I learned from all my friends, and I picked up little tricks and along the way for a little piece from everybody almost, a little bit of influence from all my peers, and they're all my teachers. And that's a really awesome thing also about the pipe movement too, is that we, it's not so secretive as it used to be. Like back in the old school days, people used to guard their techniques, and it was like trade secrets, and nowadays it's just like it's all out there. And I think it's been so amazing for just the medium of boro in general. I think it's allowed it to really just come so far in the last decade or two, as far as what we've been able to do by just sharing information openly with each other. I think has allowed us all to innovate. We all feed off of each other. So this is basically the gist of what I do in all my work. It's all about what I call progressive sculpting. And it's just shaping my pieces directly on there, as opposed to, say, making something in its entirety and then attaching it on sort of like Legos. I prefer to just directly sculpt my stuff onto my pieces. And yes, it does get heavy and it is hard work, but there's something about the flow that you can accomplish by doing it this way that I think is the thing that sets, that makes my work kind of unique.
So do you always only have the one attachment and the rest is not connected, or you kind of build them into each other?
I do multiple attachments. So this is just the first one, and then I'm going to add another one and wrap it around. And so, like if you were to look at my tree pieces, I'm basically just doing this the entire time to make a trunk. I'm just wrapping one piece onto a hollow shape, and then wrapping another piece around that, and then wrapping another piece around that.
Are you only bridging on small attachments that you're adding later, or are you also bridging on these as well and going back and cleaning that up, or have you heated it enough for that to already be a clean weld?
Yes, well you'll see in a minute. For me, I like to make my stuff strong. That comes from my pipe background. When it comes to my glass, I like to make things that you can handle, that are sturdy. And so I have this habit of making all my attachments welded onto my piece in two spots. Because if this So here I've just welded this on in the second area. And now this piece is going to be way strong than if I just left this hanging there. And that's kind of like, I think, a pipe mentality that I have about making things sturdy and strong. Like, it would be beautiful just being there, but it serves two purposes. Because now I have this little bridge here that I can weld in. Kind of making this leg super sturdy. And then I can go back in and fix my attachment as well. So make that all nice and smooth. And I use bridging a lot also. I don't always attach everything I do in two places. But bridging's my friend. I use bridging for a lot of things. Like all those trees in there, like all those canopies, there's a lot of bridging in there, putting all the individual branches on, and all the individual leaves on, for instance. I'll make a branch and then I'll sit there and add all the leaves and have them all bridged and weld them all in, and then I won't take off those bridges until the very end. So that's my recommendation, no matter how small. I mean, even my pendants, I do all bridging. You know, I think no matter how small it is, it's a good thing to bridge it, because when you don't, the glass kind of stays soft for a little bit. Even after it cures soft, like hard, you know, as long as it's hot, it's still moving slightly. And so when you bridge it, it allows it to stay still so it can cool fully and harden fully. And if you don't do that, then it might move, you might catch a fold or a crease somewhere. And so no matter what you're working on, if it's a flower petal or a leaf or something, I always recommend just bridging it in, welding it in, and then letting it harden. Just to make your stuff a little bit more sturdy.
Do you have a preference on your torch tip for your hand torch?
Yeah, I mean, this one I've had for years, and I love it. I forget what the name of it is, but it's got like multiple holes in it.
Like a
It's
5
like
quart or
a-
a 7 quart?
Yeah, it's like a 7.
Yeah. Is it a black shield set?
I
Yeah.
think so, yeah. Okay, let this thing heat back up in the film for a second. Sorry, up here. So as you can probably tell, I'm making a vase, hollow shape with some of my horns wrapped around. And I made this beautiful blooming flower to go in the vase, but somehow that did not make it in my suitcase. That's what I was bugging my husband on the phone earlier. I was like, you have to find it. But apparently I don't have it. So, look at this. Look at this show up. This is my husband, Steve, everybody. Steve up. Thank you.
See the pretty lady there. I'm a lucky guy.
This will work, but we're going to have to wait till it's cool. Well, we can see what happens.
Yeah, let's put it in there hot.
Hey, let's watch a torch. Okay. Beautiful. But yeah, I made this really beautiful blue orchid, so we can just maybe picture it in our minds what I had intended here for my finale.
I think it's in Oregon still.
Yeah, I don't think that it made it in the suitcase, unfortunately. But, what can I do?
When you are attaching large pieces, how long do you generally garage for? Do you have like
10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Yep. Well, I have a Scut kiln, which is really great because it'll tell you how long you're up to temp for, and so I love that thing. So whenever I'm working, especially on elaborate stuff, I garage it for 10 minutes and then pull it out for about 2 minutes until it goes back in. So.
Do you never use like an annealing flame when you come out? You just go straight
No.
for it?
No, yeah, that's a good point to bring up too, because a lot of people do that, and I don't, and I never have, and I don't do with a lot of cracking. You know, for me, I think the secret is that you don't have to go back and anneal it. As long as you just work in one spot on the piece, when you pull it out of the kiln and you work one spot and you don't try and go somewhere else once the other spots cool down, then you're fine. Because obviously, you know, we know that cracking happens when we have the extreme temperature shift and there's some inconsistency there. So when you pull it out, as long as you're working on that one spot and then put it back in to heat it up to work on another spot, then you're going to be fine. Then you're not going to have any problems with cracking. And you don't have to flash things. You don't have to, some people like do the propane thing and, you know, cover it with the propane soot. And I've seen on Bunsen burners and all kinds of stuff, which is great. You know, there's no wrong way to blow glass. Everybody has their own way. But for me, it's like I have found that that's not necessary. As long as I just baby my piece, essentially, like it works. Like I can make, you know, these big, crazy, elaborate tree pieces and never have to worry about flashing anything. You know, because I'm only taking it out and working on one spot for 1 or 2 minutes, and then the whole thing goes back in. So I'm really just patient with it. You know, I try not to rush things. I really try and take my time, because when you try and rush glass, that's when things go wrong. So we all know that. Yes, it doesn't matter what time you're on.
When you're adding plumbing, like down stems or joints, do you do those things prior to adding your attachments that you're then going to take all the bridges off later, or do you do that last?
It really depends on the piece. You know, a lot of my pieces are so sculptural that, you know, I don't have like say I don't just put down stems in all my pieces.
Right.
I do different functions depending on what the sculpture is going to be, but generally, you know, that's where I start with. Like the hollow form and the function of the piece is kind of like the canvas that I use to build the whole rest of the piece on. And so that's generally like the first thing I engineer in my head and work out, okay, how is this going to function? How is the sculpture going to work? How is the water going to move and the smoke going to move through the piece to make it hit right? And so, like sometimes I put the down stem in at the end, but a lot of times, like, you know, that's sort of one of the first things I kind of want to get that hollow structure out of the way, because my pieces are essentially the hollow functional sculpture, the hollow piece that's surrounded by all the sculpture. So yeah, a lot of that functional part I make first, and then do the fun stuff after. The assembly and the composition is sort of what is my favorite thing to do. So, yeah, so I answer that. We'll just leave it in here for another minute or so. Some pieces that aren't as elaborate in attachments, you know, you can get away with less time in the kiln. You know, but I just want to get a base in before I go and weld on my second leg. What's great about this color too is that, you know, it's really bright green when it cools off, but it's like this really sweet orange color, so you know when it's hot when it's orange. Let's check it out. Let's give it another minute, so a little more green than normal. Yeah, I work at home. I have a detached garage on my property, and it's just me in there, and I also have a guest bench for when I have friends come over to collaborate. And you know, I'm just personally a pretty introverted person, so I prefer to work alone. But yeah, in the last 15 years, I've worked in a lot of situations. I've worked in a lot of group shops, you know, different studios and such. And I've just kind of learned that about myself. Like, I don't really do well with a lot of distraction. It's easier for me to be able to focus without a bunch of people coming in and out or people watching me.
Answering questions.
Or yeah. It's fine though. This is fun. I've worked myself up to it, so I'm feeling prepared. But yeah, in general, I'd like to just like zone out. Like I'll put on a good podcast or an audiobook, and I just like get into my space. It's like my zen, you know. I'm in another universe, and I like having that special time. I think that's one of my favorite things about my job is that I can just go and kind of lose myself in the studio, and you know, a whole day passes by and it feels like it was just an hour. Do any of you guys experience that? Like, I think that's one of the really cool things about glass. It's such a meditative thing. You know, some people ski or snowboard or paint or skydive, you know, and they get in that zone where they feel fully alive and present in the moment. And for me, that's what glass does for me. It makes me feel fully present and alive and focused. I'm not thinking about a whole bunch of other thoughts. I'm, you know, really focused on just what I'm doing, and it's great kind of clearing the mind and, you know, constant problem solving is like exercise for the mind. So yeah, I like having my own little hideaway, my woman cave or office. So I step into my office, and it's great. And it's fun having friends over too. I have a guest bench, and so I really get excited when I have people come over and share experiences with me. For me, collabs are about more than just making a piece together. It's really about a shared experience together. And I try and put a lot of heart into the pieces that I make with other people. And we share stories about our lives, and we try and translate that into what we're making. And it really kind of takes it to the next level. You know, when you can sit there and you know, talk about things that are meaningful to you, and then try and figure out ways to depict that in what you're making. I'm just pulling out a little flower kettle here. Maybe if I have time, I might be able to make a little small something for inside of it, but we'll see. Keep it pretty simple and straightforward. Yeah, I say that you're kind of still in the, you know, early stages of glass blowing. Say you've only been in it for a couple of years, and you've got skills, but you're trying to learn more. I'd say my biggest piece of advice to you is to go out and collaborate as much as humanly possible, because you learn so much by watching other people work, but you also kind of step up your game, you know, because you want to like make sure that you're doing everything right, because you don't want to mess up the piece you're collaborating on. And you also push yourself more than normal because you're doing something that's different from your everyday work. And so collabs are just a really great way to learn. Where's the gas pedal? Where's the brake? trying to eyeball it here, trying to make it level. Trying to make it as even as possible. Put that part in for a second. Yeah, so once again, this is like my jam here. This is really the basis of all the pieces I make. There's a series of wrapping sort of these long chunks, hollow or solid, around things. I used to do this a lot with hair. So I'd make a lot of like female figures with heads on them. And I'd use this technique for the hair. I'd attach all these long chunks of cane to the skull and then wrap those pieces around, like, say, the hollow functional form of my pieces. And that's kind of how I really got good at this technique, was through that practice. And then, especially in the last year with these tree pieces, I've really learned a lot. You know, it kind of just occurred to me, really, that there's no limits, really, on what you can do and what you can build in this style. And so these tree trunks, you know, are only something that I just started doing this last year, but it's kind of opened up a whole new world for me. You know, it's taken me 10 years to kind of branch out of just doing this on figures and on heads and stuff to realize, oh man, I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff with this. So it's been fun. I've been branching out a lot in the last year and really pushing myself and really trying to challenge myself and expand on the things that I've been working on over the last decade. It's been really cool. It's been, I feel like I've really learned more in the last year than I have since the beginning. So once again, there's my little connection there. Get that guy welded on.
What were you going to take to the hollow form, or did you put something on there?
I didn't hear that.
You put like a button on there to weld it to, or you?
Yeah.
Oh, you
I have these little clear
on top, or
nubs. They're on the piece.
But on the you're doing it right now, or just?
Yeah. No, I just basically attached the end of the sculpture on there. I didn't have a set place that I wanted it to go.
Okay.
That's kind of where the freestyle comes in a little bit, is that, you know, I just go kind of where it ends up. I'm just kind of filling in negative space. And I plan it out a little bit, you know, like the length and the thickness of the chunk of cane, you know, is going to determine where it flows to. But if you notice, all three of the legs that I made are descending in size. There's the bigger one that's longest, and then there's a middle one, which is the one I'm working on right now, and there's a smaller one. And so it's going to end up making sort of this like kind of cool pattern on the side. I've been practicing doing like goblets and shot glasses lately. It's funny, in almost 15 years of doing glass, I had never made a goblet until like 2 months ago. And man, those are hard. You know, that's probably why I haven't done it, because it's really difficult. But it's been fun to kind of practice my flared feet and my cups, you know, and I've been making my lady heads and then doing the hair technique, but wrapping it around the cup of the piece. And so I've been able to make a couple really cool goblets, which has been really fun for me to experiment with something a little different than my norm. stuff. Want to make sure there's no air bubbles. There's that crevice that always wants to happen when you attach a sculpture onto a piece. So it's really about taking your time. I think that the most time when accidents happen and explosions and crafts happen is when you rush. And it's when you don't really take the time and the patience to weld everything and make sure that it's in there and solid. Because realistically, if it's all on there solid, you can just bench pull that thing and it'll be fine. Boro can stand a lot more than we get its credit for sometimes. Alright, so we'll just give that a couple more minutes. Let it heat back up before I add the third leg on there. Got now. Anybody else want to pick my brain about anything? I have a chance.
Do you only work in Boro?
I do only work Boro. It's definitely my goal to go play around in the hot shop. I haven't really had the opportunity until recently. There's a local guy that's been contributing some work to mine and my husband's gallery, and he's a soft glass blower, and he invited me over to his studio. I'm really excited because I'm going to go do that in the next few weeks. But yeah, Boro is the only thing that I have experience with. I'm really interested in stained glass. I think stained glass would be really fun. But yeah, I kind of just got into borosilicate. My background is my family owned a head shop. And so my background is kind of that pipe culture. And so, very, very soon after I started, it became my job. So it just became how I make a living. And it's hard to branch out of that when you have to work all the time and pay bills, And I've been extremely blessed, and introduced my husband earlier, I've been extremely blessed to have found a good partner who's very supportive. It's one of the big reasons why, especially after just having a baby, how I've been able to, make these big pieces of art in the last year is that, I have a partner who's been really gracious and really helpful and very supportive in me just making what I want to make. And I spent so many years just making the bare minimum, just kind of playing small and making only the things that sell and make me money, when really I had so much potential and I knew I did to go further and harder, but it's expensive to make art, and it's very hard to really be able to a lot of people aren't in the position to make art because they have to pay the bills too. And it's so hard because it's kind of like that societal pressure thing that I feel like, there's so many glass blowers that I see out there that I feel like could just rock the world in glass, but they are supporting their families and surviving, and there's no shame in that, but I wonder sometimes, what would that guy be able to make if he wasn't trying to support his family? What would he be doing, and I think about that a lot. And so when I finally got the opportunity to just say, fuck it, essentially, and just make what I want to make, I jumped on it. And I'm like, okay, now I'm just I have such limited time now with my baby to be in the studio that I'm going to go in there and make the best use of my time and make what I really want to make and what makes me happy, and it's been the best experience of my life. I feel like, after doing this project with the trees and spending the last year working on all these pieces, it's like I feel like I did in the very first or second year of going glass. I'm hungry again. I'm excited again. There were so many years that I was just run down with the grind, but being able to give myself permission to step out of the box and really challenge myself is really reignited this sort of fire in me to just, make what truly makes me happy. I hope that everybody can find that balance. And my biggest advice to finding that balance is exactly that, is balance. You know, do your proto 3 days a week. Make your money, pay your bills, that's super important. But give yourself that time. Give yourself a day or two every weekend, or every week, or on the weekend to play and have fun and experiment and mess stuff up. You need to have that. Otherwise, it's like, this just becomes like a boring, physical labor kind of job. You know, and you get tired and you get run down after a while. I mean, so give yourself that time to play and experiment. It's so important. And then one day you wake up and you made something awesome. You're like, how did I do that? I still get that. I'm like, at the end of the day, when a piece is done, I kind of look at it like, dude. It's like almost I don't even have like memory of it. It's just, man, oh, where did that come from? You know, I have this really weird feeling, like almost feeling like a vessel. You know, that I just practice and practice, and I have this kind of energy, inspiration source kind of running through me. And it's like I can't even control it. Just make what I see in my head, and then when it materializes and manifests out of thin air, I'm like, whoa, magic.
And when your baby grows up, will you encourage or discourage?
Oh, encourage all the way. I think this is the best job ever, and it would make me so happy if my son took to it like I did. You know, when I first started, I didn't like smoke weed or anything. I wasn't into the pipes. And I didn't think that there was going to be a career in pipe making. Like, if you would have told me I would have had a career making a pipe when I started out, I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm going to college and getting a real job. No, not a thing. But, you know, 15 years later, here I am, like, making pipes, and it's like the best job I ever could have had, and I've been able to travel the world and meet all these incredible amazing people and do so many cool things. Like, I wouldn't trade it for anything. You know, it just goes to show, like, if you're just doing something you love, like, the whole industry can materialize out of nothing. That's what I feel like the pipe industry has been. It's like this whole thing that's just materialized, you know, out of nowhere, from all these kids just having fun and hanging out with their friends and going to Dead Show and smoking and communing with each other. You know, it's like this culture that's like representative of now. Like, the pipe culture is like what's going on right now in contemporary glass. It's like this whole, when you look back on history, it's like this whole renaissance happened, you know, and I feel like we've elevated borosilicate so much just with our excitement, you know, of the material. It's been super cool to be a part of. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and add the last note here. I think I'm probably out of time. So we'll finish this up. Important to spin it around and try and look on all sides. If you don't, it's going to be all wonky somewhere, the one place you haven't looked. So I try and do a 360 whenever I'm adding my third foot. Man, it's so crazy how different torches heat the glass differently. When you weren't here at the beginning of my demo, I was telling everybody how I normally work on a Herbert Arnold. And the flame heats the glass so differently, it's crazy.
Have you always worked on a Herbie?
No, I used to have a Carlisle for the first several years. I got my Herbie in probably 2013. So, I love that torch. It's, for my purposes, it's been so great.
What's different with the Herbert Arnold and the Carlisle?
The main big difference is like the range of flame and the way that you get it. Like with the Carlisle, you kind of have to like sift through multiple knobs to kind of get your ideal flame. And you kind of have like big and small. You have your big flame, then you have your small flame, and that's it. What's so amazing about the Herbert Arnolds is that you get all the ranges in between. And you have one knob where you can kind of go from small to big, and you can get all those ranges of different. You can get a bushy or super oxygenated or reducing flame, and it's just a lot easier to maneuver one-handed. I don't use foot pedals or anything, so it makes my life way easier than sitting there and having to mess with 4 knobs.
What about maintenance? You gotta send it back to Germany for maintenance?
No, I have my friend Steve Bates come over and tune it for me. He's like a wizard when it comes to that kind of stuff, so I'm about due for another tuning actually, but yeah, I just have my buddy do it, and he'll come kind of, take the back off of it and fine tune it. And, they're great. They don't need a whole lot of maintenance, honestly. They really, that German engineering, pretty good stuff. All right, getting close here. Last step. I'm just gonna push it and hopefully this works. Let's see. Just make sure it's solid on there. Probably nice to warm up your tool before you go in and try and grab it with a hot piece with cold in. So I'm going to stick this back in the kiln, not push it, and I'll come back in a little bit and take the handle off and flare the top. But right now I'm not going to have anything break or crack. And we'll call it good, so we can get the rest of the Thank you guys so much.